To look at the possible psychiatric toll of the events of the past 2.5 weeks is Tim Watson-Munro, who's a criminal psychologist. Tim, welcome. Firstly, can I ask you how you reacted to the news yesterday that Cleo had been found? Was your reaction in any way tempered by your training as a psychiatrist and thoughts about Cleo's experience?
I'm a psychologist. The thoughts I had, I think, were shared by the nation, one of pure elation. I was walking the beach and I said yesterday it was one of the happiest beach walks I've had. I think we were all hoping for the best and fearing for the worst for this child. And when news came through that she was safe, I think the nation was united in its joy.
It's still, of course, Tim, unclear what happened during the time that Cleo was missing, so I guess we must tread carefully around that. But overall, what impacts would being forcibly taken away from parents and siblings have on a child Cleo's age?
Oh, extremely traumatic. Children at that age, of course, they're in an early stage of cognitive development, but they're aware of their surroundings. They're closely bonded to their parents, generally speaking. And my observations of this family at a distance is that it's a very loving, well-bonded and caring family. So for her to be whisked away in the middle of the night and put in a strange environment, I can only imagine would have been highly traumatic for her.
And how would you expect the next few days, weeks and months to play out for Cleo and her family? Fears grew for Cleo's safety with each passing day, of course, so her parents must have been preparing for the worst. So what toll do those extreme emotions take?
Look, I think it's important for things to be normalised. It's also important for the privacy of the family to be respected. They need time to recongregate and work through the issues. But at the same time, it's a difficult line to tread because I know from past experience, not dealing with child abduction cases, but where there's been huge trauma followed by relief, and during the period of the traumatic event, there's been a lot of press attention, police attention, great support from the community. And then when the case is solved, it drops away very quickly and people can feel very isolated and abandoned. So I think it's a matter of treading a delicate line between offering support without being too intrusive with this family. As to how the child is treated, it's clearly a matter for the parents and appropriate practitioners if that's the route they take.
What about the community of Carnarvon itself? It's not a big place, as we've been hearing, and this opportunistic abduction, as police have described it, it happened there. And we heard from a local resident yesterday who said her son was at school with Cleo. So for better or for worse, Carnarvon is now on the map as being the place where Cleo Smith was taken. So collectively, what will be the psychological fallout for the town and its residents of what's happened?
I think they're immense. I would imagine the people of Carnarvon right now are in a celebratory mood. They'd be deeply relieved. And of course, in many ways, the reputation of the town, if it was ever under challenge, has been restored. I mean, the town's not responsible for this. One alleged offender is. That said, again, I think when all the thrill of that dies away, people will be looking at the situation. They'll be worried about the long-term consequences for Carnarvon. But at the moment, the team spirit in Carnarvon, the community esprit de corps appears to be very high. And of course, you know, they've had immense support from the West Australian Police and others who have done a remarkably good job in this case. And I would imagine that there'd be good relationships between the community and the police, and support will derive from that as well.
Finally, Tim, this has touched everyone across the country, hasn't it? But in particular, parents and carers with young kids whose instinct now must be not to let their children out of their sight. What's the best way for them to think about what's happened? And also, how should they talk to their children about the events in Carnarvon?
Well, it's a hard one to ignore. And I think you communicate with your children, commensurate with their capacity to understand what's going on. So the conversation you might have with a teenager would be different to an infant, a 4-year-old or a pre-adolescent child. I know from past experience, I was involved in the Mr. Cruel case in Melbourne back in the late 80s. And Melbourne as a city was suffering vicarious trauma because of that offender. So I think it's very important to be mindful of that in terms of how the parents are affected. They would have been very concerned about an uncharged potential offender in their community. I would imagine now that somebody at least has been arrested awaiting charges. that sense of insecurity, the threat to their safety for the time being is gone. But they need to be treated with respect too, the parents.
Tim Watson-Munro, thank you so much for your insights.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jane.